song for the Gear Podcast. How you going, big dog?
Pretty good, big dog. What's news?
Oh, mate, good win from the boys on the weekend, so that was pretty cool. Although I guess when this comes out, hopefully they will have smashed Richmond into pieces. But, good show from the Fremantle Dockers on Friday night.
Things are looking up for Western Australian football, aren't they, Troy?
Well,
the Dockers are getting back on track. The Eagles aren't the worst.
Jake, the plugger Waterman. It's all happening in football terms.
How was your gig? For anyone listening who's not aware, Troy plays on top of Optus Stadium as the rocker on the roof for the Fremantle Dockers.
Yeah,
what were your numbers this weekend, mate?
I think it's 47,000. That was all right.
Bad.
45, somewhere around there. No, it was all right. It was, to be honest, it probably was not. I didn't have that much energy. I felt like I got some good TV time, so that was all right. But yeah, just sometimes it's hard, man. Like when I do that gig and it's, I start the thing, I've got a minute of playing guitar. At the end, I play all of TNT. So in total, there's like 4 minutes of actual work to do. The first one, I've got to condense like an entire set's worth of energy into really like the guitar solo part of We'll Rock You, so 30 seconds. Yep. And it's kind of tricky to manage that. You got to get like hyped up and then you come off and you're like, kind of want to keep going now. So I don't know. I don't really feel like I was going like balls out for that. And then at the end of the thing, I don't know if I'm match fit. Like I was doing a lot of like sort of squatting, like a little bit squatting guitar between the legs. And my, like, just generally my legs were like, fuck, this kind of hurts. So yeah, it was all right. But I reckon I'm hoping for a better individual performance next week against, who is it that they're playing actually? I can't remember now. Sydney. It'd be a good game, Sydney on Friday night. But what about you, big dog? What's been happening?
Oh, a bit of chaos at home. Just, we had a stray cat stray into our yard and get into it with our cats and, doing what you do, trying to break up cat fights. Pretty easy to get mangled. So
yeah, you're used to that,
Elspeth was in hospital for a couple of days and, she's fine. It was mostly to monitor her, but having 4 days out where you're in a ward mostly on your own, and the brightest light is seeing you on the TV at the Dockers game. Maybe not the ideal way she wanted to spend her weekend, but other than that, I mean, at the time of recording, we just announced we're doing the Ingve tour in Australia, which is great. So hitting up Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, which is going to be, it's either going to be the best experience or the worst experience of my life, and I'm just in for it.
Mate, I mean, like that's a dream come true. Like
it actually is. It actually is. I was 14 or 15 when my dad played Trilogy for me and was like, check out this Swedish bloke, man. He's crazy. And just being like, I didn't know you were allowed to play guitar like that.
Almost 20 years ago for you now, right? So like you're basically like, this could bookend. This could be an entire starting and ending chapter of Leon Todd's life. And maybe you'll get into country music as of end of the tour or Prince or something like that.
Absolutely not. Yeah, maybe. Maybe I'll get into drugs or something.
Just get into drugs, mate.
Well, what is there to lose? I've pretty much outlived my natural usefulness at this stage in my life. So, the rest of life's just a little bit of mayo on top, mate.
Yep, mate. Yeah.
Speaking of mayo on top, we're here to talk about gear. So, yeah, the Ingve thing, I'm sure it will be fun. I'm just, obviously a big fan. It'll be nice to see his show. And that every single person in the audience is going to be a guitar player. So
what are you going to take?
Yeah, that's a good question. It'll be...
Take your Ingve Strat.
I'm going to have to take 2 guitars and take that.
Yep.
It would be cool to get him to just, oi, Malmsteen, do you look at a g'day? So my guitar.
Let me just interject for a second. So just to go back to the football on Friday night. So it's like the only time I ever get recognized for anything is when I'm there. And like sometimes people come take photos, they'll come have a chat for a minute. So that's cool. So anyway, I was standing there ready to go up to the roof to do my gig. And one of the guys, one of the staff at the stadium, sort of like taller guy, long hair, beard, he walked over and he goes, I was like, going to ask about the thing. He goes, sorry, mate, did you get up on stage and sing with Kip Winger when he came like 4 years ago? And I was like, yeah, I did.
Get out.
Yeah, so the guy was like, we're not no disrespect to Kip Winger, but it wasn't like a sellout gig, unfortunately, when he came. So there wasn't, I was very excited to see him. He's one of my favorite artists. I know, same for you.
That's like someone coming up and just doing the Freemason handshake.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay.
But no, it was cool because I got up and sang Miles Away with him, which is, the guy actually asked me.
It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube. And the guy said to me like, oh, was that pre-planned? And I was like, oh, not really. But, you know, you guys Ragdoll had done the supports over East and like hipped me to the fact that he gets people up to sing with him. So I was like, I knew it was coming. And when the moment happened and like, oh, does anyone want to come sing? I was like, bam, hand up in the air. Has to be me.
And we were all like, Troy.
Yeah, so that was cool. But anyway, sorry, I just wanted to interject because I thought you'd like that story. And Ingve Lickadickaday. You got yeah.
If you know, you know.
Yep.
So yeah, that'll be good fun, mate. This is the Gear Podcast. However, what new gear has come across your desk this week? You have a few little things, a few cheeky little morsels.
What, mate? There's been a couple little things.
Yep.
And I'll start with a new. So I'm building this board at the moment, right? So Rockboard 3.1. Currently, it has a Friedman IRX on it. I'm trying to work out how to run the board, if it's going to be a direct board, if it's going to be an amp board. But one thing was for certain, Uncle Leon, I needed in my life for the last 6 months, since I built a pedal board for someone else who had one of these pedals, I needed to own a Brown Audio Protein. So finally, one came up secondhand. Picked it up on Saturday, and it shipped and it arrived yesterday. So, mate, that's come in the mail. So I've been smashing that. Do you know much about that pedal?
Only what you've told me. So tell me again.
It's basic. Okay, for starters, like, I feel a little yucky because I think it's one of those pedals that's kind of if you love John Mayer, you should get this pedal because it's a combination of a this and a that sort of thing.
So, and we know you're a big fan.
Oh, just love frother John Mayer, big fan, huge. But no, it's basically it's a double foot switch redo pedal. One side is a Blues Breaker style thing, one side is a Nobles ODR sort of thing. So, but they're slightly tweaked and they sound really good. I'm sort of just understanding the use of the Blues Breaker sound, like on a just to give a bit of like crunchiness. I liked that sound just to, rather than use compression, I liked just to have that little bit of extra like dirt just to sort of, take the edge off the sound, like the spikiness. And then the ODR, that Nobles ODR sound is just such a, like, this is what I like about it, is to me it feels really generic. It feels like just if you want it to, you want a rhythm guitar sound that doesn't like speak too much and just sort of sits there. Like when I played through that pedal, like that did it for me really quickly. So, and sometimes I just find with a Marshall or a Boogie, like I hear the sound too much and I'm like, yeah, that sounds cool. I want to play Van Halen licks or whatever, or I want to play drop D heavy sort of stuff. And that's not that appropriate for playing songs all the time. So yeah, it's a bit more neutral, and I sort of really dig that. So anyway, that's on the board, and yeah, pretty happy about it. So currently got that little baby polytune, the Friedman IRX, the Sidekick, Crazy Tube Circuit Sidekick, and one other thing actually that I didn't tell you about is I was Peter, who has the studio next to mine. We were just talking about like the little baby pedals after the Tonex came out, and I was telling him the little baby Tonex. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. You do so much in such a tiny form factor. And the next day I showed up and he'd left what's it called? The Moore yellow compressor in the studio. And he's
a well-regarded comp.
Yeah. And he said, oh, look, I left this because if you're trying to work out with your board, I thought maybe you want to just like see what the size comparison looks like. And I was like, oh, that's really nice. Anyway, I didn't really know much about it, but chucked him on the board and man, it's like the compressor that I've been looking for my entire life. So
crazy, right?
Yeah. So it's based off the Diamond compressor, which I didn't realize.
Yep.
Which
where based off is a very nice way of saying basically a 1-to-1 clone.
Yeah, but it's a much smaller form factor. And it sounds really great, man. Like I think like compressors are a bit hit and miss for me sometimes. Like I've got a couple of different ones. Like I've got CS2 and a CS3. That's the boss one, right? The CS2? Not Counter-Strike?
Yes.
Yeah. I've got
Counter-Strike, yep.
I've got a Walrus Audio Deep 6, I think, which is like a FET compressor. And they're all cool, but it's kind of like I really hear the effect a bit too much, and it doesn't quite do the thing that I want it to do. Whereas this guy, I think it's an opto compressor, I think. It just felt like
Right.
it was reasonably transparent. It made stuff a little spankier, but when I was playing chords, it wasn't like constantly sucking. So yeah, it was pretty cool, man. And that's I've sort of commandeered that for this board as well. So yeah,
And
that's.
for anyone watching, you can get one of these for less than 60 Australian dollars.
Can you really? I thought it was more like
Yeah.
120 or something.
I'm seeing. Oh no, maybe these are US dollars here.
Right.
So
you need
less
to
than
set
60
it to
US
dollary
dollars.
dues, mate, and then you'll find the
Yeah, I
right
got to
price.
set it to dollary dues.
So anyway, man, I would. I'm not sure if you checked them out. Have you tried the diamond compressors before? Or the
No, never.
They're- I didn't-
I have read that the Mua Yellow comp is like it's actually an awesome thing. It's probably the best thing they make.
Yeah, it's really good, man. It's and like diamond as well, because I looked at just to net, like, yeah, based off cloned whatever. I'm just curious if I like something. Years and years ago when I started doing, I was working in studios. I was talking to someone about clones, like microphone clones and preamp clones, and it's
Yep.
like, oh, you can get a knockoff 1176 for this much money and get a knockoff 1073 or a U47. And he was kind of like, just get the real thing. If you like it, if it's good, just buy the real thing. And then you're never going to be thinking, oh, am I missing something from the original or from the main one?
Yeah.
And that's like easier said than done with something like a $5,000 Neve 1073 or a like $10,000
right.
or $20,000 U47. But like a 60 USD compressor versus a maybe $150 USD compressor, I can maybe like cop that. But yeah, Diamond, they've gone out of business now apparently. So tough titties
Yeah.
for Troy. Can't help you.
The yellow comp it is, Troy.
Yeah, but yeah, man, it's been good. So I've had those come into my life, and
That's pretty rad.
and then more excitingly, for at least not that it's mine, but just something that's that I'm borrowing probably on like, for the next little while is, I'm not sure if you can see it there, but you might be able to read the little bloody logo there. That's a Soldano SLO 100.
Big dog.
Finally,
The
mate.
SLO 100.
Finally. And so my buddy Lee, who works at the Rock Inn, he kindly lent that to me. I believe he said he bought it last year, and he's used a little bit. I think he said he owned one like a long time ago and sold it and always regretted it.
Right.
And so when one came up secondhand, he sort of jumped on it. So yeah,
Now, is that a newer one? Like a
Yes,
boutique amps one? Yeah,
I believe
right.
so. It's got well, you tell me, but it's got a depth control on the front and it's got the channel switch on the front as well. So I think with the older
Right.
ones that's like foot switch only and maybe the depth doesn't exist or something. I read that.
Oh, yeah, you could get them depth modded.
Yeah.
That was a thing. I think if you look at the Transformers, you can tell that's a thing. But man, like, how do you like it? Because, I've only played a legit SLO once, and it was recently, and it was pretty rad.
Yeah, it's great, man. I used it. The reason I have it right now is I actually borrowed it for a session I did last night, which is kind of like a 80s rock-ish sounding thing. I just thought it might be a fun amp to try that on. Not that I don't already have like plenty of options. And remind me, because I'll tell you something else kind of funny about what I use for guitar sounds. But I borrowed that amp. I shot out a bunch of different amps and cabinets and stuff. And that was the winner, which at first I played it yesterday and I was like, man, this sounds fucking awesome. Like, it's not surprisingly, it's an incredible sounding amp, but it's just like, it's another amazing sounding high gain amp. They all sound different, but is this like, does this justify the like $7,500 Australian price tag? Because as I'm looking at it, I'm like, I want to buy stuff because I'm a greedy little pig, but I don't know if in the future it's something that I like. When I first played, I'm like, I don't know if this is a $7,500 amp for me personally when I've got all the other stuff, but I'm going to buy one immediately.
Yeah.
But it beat all the other amps last night when I was shooting them out.
But now you know.
Now I know. I found it was really clear. I was actually expecting maybe a brighter sound out of it. Not that it's not bright like it is, but I kind of feel like maybe from your Soldano, like your Hot Rod 50, I feel like when we first like kind of plugged that guy in and fucked around with it, it always felt like it had a bit of brightness to it, which was cool,
Yeah.
but maybe that was just the way we dialed it in. This one, like pretty much all the tone controls are at like midday. and it's
a thick sounding amp. That's the best way to describe it.
it's
Not
thick,
not
but not
necessarily
muddy.
saturated, but thick. Yeah,
Yeah.
thick but not muddy.
It's just clear. It's like a really clear sort of distorted sound. So man, I really
If
dug
it was a cut of meat, if it was a cut of beef, what would it be, Troy?
Would it be is it juicy intent? Maybe like a filet mignon sort of thing.
Yeah, maybe.
It's
Maybe
not a
that's
ribeye.
it. It's just like straight to the point.
It's not a Scotchy.
Yeah, is it Marshall the ribeye? Or is that a recto?
Marshall might be like I was going to say Marshall might be a T-bone, but T-bone's got a bit of both in there. So something with versatility, I reckon that's your T-bone steak.
Something with versatility, that's your T-bone steak.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
A good clean
You got a
sound.
bit of everything.
Yeah. So,
What's the rump steak?
do you know what? Immediately when you say that, I feel like maybe like some sort of Fender amp is a rump.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Deluxe reverb.
I was going to say like a super reverb.
Oh, yeah.
Something like, I don't know why that feels right. Maybe not a basement. It doesn't feel like I feel like a basement deserves more respect than that. But
I feel like a basement's just it's like ribs or something.
what has the 15? Like what has a 15-inch speaker in it in Fender amps?
Vibreverb?
Does it really? Doesn't feel like a
Yeah.
Vibreverb. Vibreverbs feel a bit more classier than a rump steak. But anyway, that doesn't matter too much. But like
This doesn't matter too much, does it?
I've got the Soldano, and I really dig it. I was playing it yesterday through the little Marshall 2x12 cab that I've got.
Yep.
In the room and cranking him up a little bit. Can you remind me when we were talking to Warren, like whenever that was, or was it him saying it, or maybe it was someone else? But like with the Soldanos, you get them to a certain point and they kind of just really open up.
Yeah, I mean, my hot rod does that.
Was it about 6?
Yep.
Yeah, that's
And
kind
that's
of
loud.
It's really loud, man. Like I cranked this guy to 6, and it was kind of tearing the paint off the walls.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that SLOs are particularly loud amps,
Right.
So that doesn't surprise me that it's absolutely crushing at that level. But yeah, they definitely, they're one of those, they're kind of interesting in the world of high gain amps where a lot of other amps, rectifiers, 5150s, the power amp matters, but probably not as much as you would think, where you can get a very similar sound with the preamp, with everything quite low versus cranking it up. But yeah, with a Soldano in particular, there is that glow zone where you're like, this is really good, and then, oh my God, this is so loud, but it's got that extra thing happening once you do turn it up. Or a JCM 800, it sort of like smooths out nicely, but without getting muddy.
Yeah. Well, I've got the reactive load back in my rack now, so I didn't have that connected for a little while because I had a few little noise issues with it. But that's back in. I was able to back it off to something slightly more manageable for like playing in the room and also for recording.
Yeah.
Although in saying that, I turned the load off. I turned the load, it wasn't doing anything, and did crank it up in the room just to have a little listen to it with earplugs in, which always have the earplugs handy, and it sounded really great, man. Yeah, and I tried it with some pedals, and I think that sounded really cool too. I tried the little the Protein blues breaker side into it, and that sounded cool. So yeah, man, really keen to experiment with that a little bit more. So I shot out some cabs as well. For the session, and weirdly enough, I don't know what was happening, man. It might have just been a weird night, but the greenback cab sounded kind of dog shit like all night.
Right.
But the vintage 30 cab, 2003, 2004 vintage 30 cab, sometime around there, sounded really good.
Tojba approved.
Yep. And so I used that guy, and then I did committed some high treason, Uncle Leon, because when I do guitar tracking like the sort of stuff I did last night, double track left and right. So one side was Soldano, and then I put a little bit less effort into the other side guitar track. Last time I worked with these guys, I used the 5150. So tried a few things out. Tried my Marshall, these sort of things. 5150 sounded good, but didn't really love it through the cabinets. But do you know what I did, Uncle Leon? T75s.
Oh, man.
Can you believe it? JCM 800 cab with T75s in it. And it was great. It was very, very good and incredibly appropriate for this sort of music. And
that's wicked, man.
There's some people that they wouldn't. That if there was a club that we were both in, I would be asked to give my membership back because people hate them so much. But they're good speakers and they work. When they work really great. Is what I'd say.
Yeah. And hey, I've gigged a hot rod with a 4x12 with T75s a bunch of times, and it was pretty awesome. So,
yep.
There we go. Don't believe everything you read. And also, I'm glad. It's kind of cool. Again, the John Brown video with the V30s, which I saw came out a year ago.
All right.
So
that's cool.
I feel like people have got over the edgelordism with V30s, where they're either the best or the worst. And people are like, nah, they're just a speaker that lots of people absolutely love.
Yep.
So, and that's totally fine. What was I going to say? That's a cool way to. So you just did the double with different cabs.
No, and 5150 as well. So like different amp.
Okay, gotcha.
Same
different
guitar,
amp. Okay.
Yeah. So Soldano
cool.
V30 one side, and then 5150 T75 the other side. But I mean, it's usually I'll do some combination of two different amps particularly for a rock track like this, a rock album like this. It's not that uncommon. But I'm trying to, this is not a band where like rectifiers and stuff really suit. So it is a much more 80s sounding style of music. So it just lent itself.
Yeah.
I found this thing, I've probably mentioned on this before, but like I've worked with this band before and I used V30s and I used greenbacks. And it was a weird thing where like the V30 was such a great sound, such a clear, balanced, like beautiful sound that it was actually really difficult to make it fit in the mix for that sort of music. It was like too pure of a tone, if that makes sense. Whereas like the T75, it kind of like it's almost like you're standing back from the speaker a little bit. And so it just doesn't feel as direct and in your face. And like even saying that, man, I used a fucking E609 on it, which is not really a like Sennheiser 609.
Interesting.
Which I don't love that mic. I don't hate it, but it's never like my go-to. It just so happened to be like close to the speaker. So I chucked him up there. And it sounded awesome. So maybe it was the correct night for it. Who knows? But yeah, I was pretty happy with the sound. Like that'll come out in the next couple of months. I'll share it maybe when it comes out. People can tell me if they like it or not. So yeah, mate. There you go. What do you reckon about that?
There you go. Mate, there was a lot in that. The SLO makes me really happy. The T75s makes me really happy. And just, tracking big dirty guitars also makes me really happy.
Well, mate, what makes me really happy is that I own a lot of equipment, and when I get to use it, I'm very happy. And rather than just like, I'm just going to spend all of my hard-earned money on stuff that looks cool and sits there and collects dust. Because that does happen too, man. Like I've been so guilty of that, but it's like it's nice to experiment and make stuff works. So the other thing I did, man, weirdly enough, which I just never ever do, is super overdrive into the Marshall for guitar solos.
Oh, I mean,
like perfect.
How was it? Was it just perfect?
It was like actually the most perfect thing you could imagine. Like I did it. I'm like, of course, for the lead. We did it for the leads, so it was
nice.
Man, it felt great. So that was.
Doing rock music using a Soldano 5150 and an old Marshall boosted with an SD1 is, what more do you need in your life?
Nothing, mate. Absolutely nothing. So
exactly, that's wicked.
So yeah, that's a bit of a Troy Nababan news dump. And as I said to Leon pre this episode, I just wanted to talk about the Soldano so we can call this a slow news day.
Exactly. I love when we get the episode title straight out of the way. I was actually chatting to Warren, who we had on the podcast not long ago, and he had a pretty fun idea where he was like, hey, what if I send you some DIs of me playing and you send me some DIs and we reamp each other and just like through each other's gear? It's like a way to try your buddy's rig. So hopefully do that over the next couple of weeks. That'd be pretty cool. I'll definitely get him to do something with the SLO because it's a rad amp and it'd be fun. Pivoting for a second to gear, my old Marshall, which I can now say, right? I did a video with it a couple of weeks ago, the 79, that arrived safely at Jason's place. So it's, at the time of recording, getting the head first treatment. Unfortunately, the box was a bit beaten up. Troy gave me the box for it, which it was a great box.
Yeah, so
Pour one out for the box.
it's such a shame. Like and this sounds ridiculous, but yeah, the cardboard box, I received that with the Cornford amp in it about this time last year from my buddy Scott, who lives over in New South Wales. So he sent that amp over. When my amp needed to go to Jason to get modded, I used the same box. Jason shipped it back. Leon's amp needs to go back over to Jason. I give him the cardboard box. Jason gets the box. But as you just mentioned, mate, that box did not make its third trip across the Nullarbor.
Exactly, which is a shame. But, there will be a new box to come and take its place, Troy. And so I'm sure we'll be sending more stuff to Jason. Yeah, I'm really excited for what he's going to do to it. So that'll be awesome. Awesome. The other thing I was going to say, and this is actually a plug for the Gear Podcast, because hopefully by the time we put this out, maybe people will be able to go and get these and try them for themselves, and it will be a way to support the Gear Podcast. But we're talking about the Tonex 1 the other week, Troy, and you sussed it out and you've been making some captures. So there's let's talk about the Tonex thing for a while, because I tried the captures and I thought they sounded absolutely awesome.
My captures?
We'll link them in the description or something like that if they're up. And we'll have to do a whole bunch of our extra gear because, playing the capture you made of your Marshall, I was like, this is sick. I really, really like it. So, how did that go? And then, maybe you got a little bit of a rant about the update with it and some things. But tell me the good first. Give me the good. Yeah,
man. So I got pretty inspired after the little mini pedal came out to investigate the Tonex stuff again. I think I bought the software about a year and a half ago and tried capturing stuff back then. The big stopping point in my rig, and I won't go too nerdy with it, but like, long story short, this like Avid interface that I use, which is awesome. Just if you know anything about Avid gear, it's really difficult to get like your Mac audio or your computer audio and then the interface to talk to each other in certain circumstances. And so, long story short, I've got to use a lot of Dante stuff back and forth to route signal, and that took a little while to kind of process how it all connected together, and also because I do stuff one week and then I get distracted by the other actual paid work that I have to do, and then my children. I come back 3 weeks later and I've forgotten how it's all patched in, and I go, no, I'll come back to that another day. And then turns out it's taken a year since I've looked at that stuff again. So anyway, went through the process again, plugged them all up, got it all working. It took a couple of hours of like me listening to podcasts about football and slowly getting it all connected and working. But yeah, man, so I thought, well, let's try the Marshall. Actually, the first one I did was the SV20. It's because it was, in terms of the gear that I've got currently connected, it's the cheapest amp, would cost the least amount of money to replace if I blew it up. So I thought that's probably not a terrible one to do. And yeah, man, so pretty much used that guy, dialed in how I liked it. And then I tried a couple of different options as well. So I was curious because I needed, firstly, I keep getting distracted with the timeline of it, but with the Tonex, like, as you know, you can capture your amp by itself, or you can capture an amp and cab combination as well.
Correct.
Or you can do pedals or the whole shebang. It's like anything with distortion and stuff. It's pretty cool. So I did I connected the Torpedo reactive load into the rig, so that meant I could capture just the head by itself and did those, and then I wanted to try it through a cabinet as well, through a Greenback's cab, and the whole process is like pretty simple now that it's working, and probably in like the last hour and a half I had last week, I made like those captures that I sent you, like a couple of extra captures that I sent you. And
like, I, again, really, really like the Marshall one, like just the straight J.K. Lee one, and then the stock was, it was hitting the spot.
Did I send you the direct ones as well? I did the Synergy Direct, but maybe I didn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you get a chance to try that one?
I didn't. No, I literally only played the Marshall.
No, that's cool. Like, because I ended up doing...
I haven't checked all of them yet.
No, it's fine, man. Like, I did those ones, and then, so before I left, I tried to do a couple of other things. So I did a capture of the Direct module and a capture of the JJ Dirt module, the Salvation one that I got from Mike Torin. So did those through the Fryette 292 power amp.
Oof.
Which was really interesting. I think the the thing that okay, so I did those the last ones I did was Friday afternoon, and then I came in. I had weekend off where I was doing other work, and then obviously, well, I teach on Monday, so I couldn't come back until Tuesday. And yeah, it was like there's a bit of investigation that I got to do around the captures. I sort of found some of them sounded very samey, maybe, and I'm not sure at what point that happens. Maybe that's just my my ear for tone is like I like the thing that I like. So I'm gonna experiment a little bit with how to create these captures. One thing I did find really useful. I don't know if other people do this stuff too, because I haven't downloaded many other packs and stuff. But after I did the capture, I brought it into Pro Tools and I was playing it as a plugin, and then I put FabFilter Pro Q3 after the plugin, which has got the what do you call it, the frequency response graph thing in it. Yes. And so some of the
spectrum.
Yeah, I don't know why I can't bloody remember these words. But on Pro Q3, you can dial it, you can solo certain bands to see where it's sounding good and bad. So what I found really useful is there's a few times that there might be say a bit of 800, too much 800 or too much 220. So I could find what sounded bad and then use the internal EQ controls in the Tonex plugin to EQ, basically copy the same EQ settings and then save that as a preset.
Like bake it in.
Yeah, it's baked into the preset, not into the amp capture itself. And I think there's a few things there that I'm trying to understand how the actual program works. Because and it might just be the window that I was clicking through things in, where I was getting confused with how it worked. I don't want to go too much in that. It's kind of nerdy, and it was a week ago. But let's talk about the bad for a second, mate, because the whole process did cause me an entire day of grief when I came back in on Tuesday. So I hadn't used Tonex for a while. In terms of I hadn't captured my amps, but I have been using the plugin on a bunch of sessions, and I'd use it for bass a lot.
We're getting somewhere with this one, aren't we?
Yeah. So I use. There's a couple of bass presets that I really like, and there's been a few guitar sounds that I've used it for recently when I've been sent DIs as well as amp sounds when maybe I haven't been that into the amp sound. So yeah, I used it over an entire album, and I used it on a couple of other tracks that are still ready to be finished. The album literally needed to be bounced, and then that was it, right? So anyway, I on Friday, I was like, well, I haven't used this plugin for a bit. I better update the plugin because that's probably pretty smart. There might have been a few things changed about it since I last, tried to capture an amp. So new version, updated version, whatever, 1.6 or 1.7 or something I updated to. And then I come in on Tuesday and I start opening up these sessions to bounce the tracks out. And it's literally just I just bypass the limiter, bounce it out, see you later. Takes a little while to do it, but it took maybe 2 hours to go through, bounce out this entire project. And then I did that, and I started on another project that used the Tonex plugin. I'm like, fuck, this sounds weird. This sounds really different. These guitar sounds aren't quite, the bass was all of a sudden incredibly loud, and I couldn't really work out what was happening. And then I opened up the bass preset and was like, oh, that's weird. It's I don't know why I use this Black Angus Marshall JCM 800 sound on a bass guitar for this song. That's a bit weird. And so I went through, and the update had wiped every setting of every instance of Tonex and every song I'd used it on.
No.
Yeah, so that was very frustrating.
What is wrong with you, IK Multimedia?
So yeah, so that was on Tuesday. And sure enough, I went back through the album that I'd literally just bounced out and spent a couple of hours doing, and there was a few edits I had to do too. So I was like, well, this is pretty shit. And it had fucked everything up. And I hadn't really thought to note down the amps that I'd use, because it's mostly the same one, but there are a couple of different ones where I think I used this redneck fuzz preset on a lot of tracks. And and then but there was one where I maybe used an orange amp and one where I used a cleaner twin sort of thing. So yeah, man, it was pretty brutal. I had to go back and rebounce everything and re-edit everything. So that was that's really a huge pain in the ass. But
you know what they did, Troy? They yucked your yum.
Goddamn right they did. But so I did that, but then it turned out there was one or two songs where I forgot to save a version, an updated version of it. I just hit save by accident. So I had to go back and like cross-reference the bounce from the version that I knew was correct against like the session file. Man, it was a huge fucking pain in the ass. It took so long to resolve that problem. I managed to do it and it was okay. But and even then, like to fix the problem, I had to go back and download the original version of the Tonex plugin that I had, which took 3 goes because I didn't know the version that I had. And I downloaded like a way earlier one that didn't work at all. I couldn't even open the plugin. And I think it's version like 1.104 or something. That was the one that worked. And it managed to open up all the settings that I had. But fuck, man, what a huge pain in the ass. So it's kind of a shame because like I did all this stuff on Friday. I was so into this Tonex thing and the possibilities, like thinking about all the amps of mine that I can model and how I can use them. And then I get bent over on Tuesday with all of this stuff and I go, fuck Tonex, fuck IK Multimeter. I'm never touching this plugin again. But now it's been a couple of days and I've calmed down, so I probably will get back into it again. But yeah, huge pain in the ass, man. Huge.
I mean, why break? It's kind of like the number one rule. If you're updating a plugin, you should test it so that it doesn't break existing presets. And if it is, you should warn users because when something just comes in and you go, free update, how good's a free update? And then you can't reload your old sessions. It's like the whole point of working in the box with this shit is so you can have instant recall.
Yeah.
And if you want to change something, you can go back. But yeah, just how good's the Black Anchus preset, bro?
Actually, it's not a bad sound. Do you know what's really weird, man? Like I had the updated version that I downloaded on Friday. I had version like 1.1 or something, which I thought was maybe the original version of that I had. So I downloaded that, installed it, and then the 1.1.4, whichever the final, the actual one I had. They all look completely different. Like, why are there so many GUI like updates of a plugin that's been out for like a year and a half? Like that. That makes no sense. And like they made the editor worse for the Tonex pedal with the recent update. Man, you said that the other day, but like it's true. Like the editor or the plugin, like I found it unusually difficult to navigate. Like I'm like searching around. That's what I mentioned before. There's the capture and then there's the preset, and they kind of seem like they're related but not exactly the same thing. And so as I was browsing, I'm like, fucking, what's going on here? There's like instances where I think the preset I could save a cab, like a specific cab sound or cab IR, whereas the capture itself doesn't have one baked into it. So like that took me probably too long to work out how to suss out and how to operate that. So man, huge pain in the ass. But like I got there, and well, yeah, where I currently sit, if I've got I don't have too much more time at the studio today, so I can't do any captures, but I've got through most of my other work, so maybe tomorrow, if I've got a couple of hours, I'll go and do some more profiling. But man, I'm like going back to the positives. Like, I'm glad you like those Marshall ones. I thought they sounded pretty good. Yeah, it's just something that I'm kind of keen to keep exploring with it. And yeah, I sort of had a quick little look at other profilers as well, like the QC and what's the other one, NAM?
You should try some NAM ones, yeah. Because you can, I mean, it's the whole training thing isn't as like on rails like Tonex is, but it's super accurate. And again, it's an open source plugin. So there's a pretty big community around it, which is cool. So yeah, I mean, if you do want to check it out and make some captures, maybe we'll, it would be cool to have the main amps that you use available for because we talk about it all the time for people who enjoy the podcast, who listen to it. You can go and pick up Troy's amp collection for $10 or something like that, and load it into Tonex or NAM, or load it into NAM and then capture it with Tonex.
I'll say this now, like if you want, mate, when you put this episode out, just chuck that the Jakey Lee one, just that one that you like, just chuck that up as a link somewhere, and people can have that.
And people can try it. That'd be awesome. There you go.
If they like it. Because I don't know, man.
It is kind of fun.
Yeah,
I like that aspect of capturing. There are, with Tonex, we just outlined a few issues with it. And yeah, the whole like using captures thing, sometimes you're like, yeah, it's close, but then I want to tweak it. And it, sometimes it's just easier to use a component-based amp model. But, I think if someone like is watching a video, say, of your amp, and you can just say, hey, here's the settings I like the most. Here's a capture of it. Mm-hmm. You watch the video, you can try that sound with your rig.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
That's kind of a cool thing.
Absolutely. What was I going to say too? Oh, the other thing I looked at, because I went down a bit of a Tonex a thought rabbit hole. Not I didn't go too much past it, but the training I did. Well, that the ones that I made that I sent you, they were just default like length what training sort of things.
Yep.
Because I'm still running an i7 Mac Mini, so the graphics. I think the graphics card's the thing that does a lot of the processing, and I think I may last year have tried doing the advanced one, and it just took way too long, so I didn't even attempt it this time. But I sort of looked into maybe getting a PC, like a cheap PC with an NVIDIA graphics card. And
just to do these things.
Yeah, because you can, with Dante, because it is all wired through Dante, I could easily have that as a network-based thing and just send the capture through, put the computer in the other room, screen share into it, and just make captures while I'm doing other work.
Very clever.
Yeah, so I kind of had a little thought about that. We'll see. That's, I haven't, I thought about a PC one because, you can do that a lot cheaper. Haven't used a PC really for the last 12 years. Which is a bit surprising. So go back to I was using XP back then as well, even though XP was at that point probably 8 years dated and no one was using it.
I bought that computer off you and it ran XP until it died. That's computer
right.
When I had it.
I forgot that.
I never connected it to the internet.
Yep. That's so funny. Do you still have that computer? I don't want it, but
no, it died, man. It's been literally, I gave it to my dad and he pulled all the screws and cables out of it, and then the rest of it got scrapped. So I was like, hey, I'm going to throw this out. And this is just a thing. I remember when DVD players achieved ascendancy, he would just go down to the tip and just collect VCRs for nothing and pull them apart and pull out all the little screws and just basically upcycling them. And there's lots of the guitars he's made and lots of things. It's see, this is the one thing about my dad, Troy. If you need any sized screw, bolt, Allen key, any tool thing ever, you can just be like, hey, Bill Todd, I need this size. And it's better than Bunnings because he's got it. He'll just be like, hang on, I think I know the one you want. And then it'll give you 3 options. It's probably this one, but it might be this one or this one. And normally it's 90% of the time it's the one. So yeah, that's, I remember being like, what are you doing this when I was a teenager? He's like, this stuff, there's a lot of screws in here. I've got the time to do it. So that was pretty fun.
In my brain, you ask him for a screw size and he went into that mind palace thing. Darren Brown style, close your eyes and go into your mind palace and looking through the shelves of different jars of screws and stuff.
Is this what we do, but we go to the Tone Palace? When someone's like, I want it to kind of sound like this, and you just kind of just use a JCM 800, who cares?
Yeah. Do you know what's funny is that Black Angus preset, there was, I chose some really clean guitar sounds. I needed really clean sound for a couple of parts on this song. And when I did load it up, the Black Angus actually worked on 2 out of the 3 guitar sounds. I didn't end up keeping it because I wanted to keep it consistent. But I was like, fuck, that's pretty funny. No wonder it's the first one up.
That's awesome. So yeah, to any plugin developers out there, if you're going to update your shit, do it properly.
Better. Just be better.
Just be better. Do better. And to be fair, I've been reading a lot of stuff about IK Multimedia for a long time. I don't really feel this is news to anyone who's used their products before, where they'll update stuff and it will break things. And the thing with Tonex software, it's so convenient. It's got so many upsides. There are downsides to it.
Yep.
I mentioned that in the video that I did with the OG Tonex pedal. It's this is very good, but it could be great. They could put a little bit of extra effort in and really make this great. And, some companies just...
Oh, mate, you never know.
No, that's fine.
It's like when the West Coast Eagles are just sucking for an entire season. Sometimes the effort's there, but they just don't have the cattle in the field, mate, to make it happen. So maybe that's the problem,
Exactly. I made some NAMM captures of my Boogie Mark IV and my Soldano hot rod. Like, if you want to try that plugin,
Yeah,
I'll
man.
send them over to you. I've shared them before. They sounds good. It feels really good. It's pretty impressive.
I suppose if it feels good, do it. Now, is it a plugin that I can, like an AX style plugin, or is it a standalone app that I use on my computer?
I think you can get both.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'll try it out.
I'm pretty sure they have an AX version. Maybe it's just a VST, so you need a wrapper or something. But, you know.
My name's Troy Naverbon, and I'm here to say that sort of rapping. Yep. That's a great
It's the
joke.
Gear Podcast every day.
We still got to do your freelance album, mate. Your freelance, sorry, not freelance, freestyle rap album.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll just compile some samples from Ragdoll and the Gear Podcast, and we'll go to town on it.
Yeah, we'll train some AI on however many. Mate, I got confused. Sorry to change the subject. I saw Pass Effect sent you like 100,000 subscriber thing. I was like, oh, he's done it. But then I looked and it's like, haven't hit the number yet.
Haven't quite hit the number yet. By the time this video comes out, it might have hit the number. But that was really, really sweet. So shout out to Verly. I love Verly. Been so good to me over the years with, just letting me borrow like cool, really obscure stuff and also really desirable pedals. And, let me borrow a TC 1210 because they were like, oh, is this a good rat chorus? Would people want one of these? I'm like, yeah. So they bought it. And then we're like, oh, test it out and let me know how it works. So, yeah, that was opening that. That was super sweet. I was blown away. So, just like I'm blown away by all the people who choose to listen to the Gear Podcast, Troy. So, check if you're watching on the YouTube, check the video description. Otherwise, I will put the captures you made up on Gumroad. I have a Gumroad page. It's like Gumtree, but you sell stuff. So, there'll be some presets up on there. My fractal presets and blocks library are already up there if people want to grab them. And, you'll be slinging some bucks towards the Gear Podcast end of season barbecue.
Yeah, mate. Those briskets are not cheap. I'll tell you that.
Mate, Troy made a brisket a couple of weeks ago and it was darn good. Mate, imagine one day, Troy, the Gear Podcast does an American tour and we can tie it into like going to all these brisket places.
Yeah, we'll go to NAMM next year and we'll do that. Or we'll take a tour of like the best barbecue places in the South first. We'll go, we'll fly to Texas.
Gear later.
You can see Elspeth's family. Then we'll go on a barbecue tour. Then we'll fly to LA and we'll do NAMM and then we'll come home. What do you reckon?
My mate Mick was in Austin recently. And something came up about me. He's like, oh, yeah. No, we were like, I was staying there for a few weeks just during COVID. He's like, yeah, I had like a coworker who just like went and bought us like Franklin's every day. He was like, yeah, it was nice. I was like, you do realize that's the holy grail for a lot of people. This is like, oh, yeah, tasty.
Yeah, your mate Nick just getting shouted out by Coldplay as well. So
yeah, and
this
hey,
is like for real, Leon's mate.
Shout out to my friend Michael Sheldrick for his new book, which is out. You should, if you're interested in, modern geopolitics, you're interested in leadership strategies. It's great because now when you type him in on Google, it says author on there. So
that's nice.
His book is, I'm actually going to put this up for you so that I don't just be like, yeah, check this bloke out. Hey, he's sick. It's called From Ideas to Impact. So, shout out to Mick. Mick's a champ. And doing great things in the world, making the life of a lot of people a lot better. So, you're doing all right when...
That's all I remember of him.
Smash some garlic broccoli, that man did.
We all did, mate.
When Idris Elba is doing the foreword to your book, you're doing all right?
Oh, my God. Yeah, just name dropping for Mick. And what, he went to Mindari?
I went to Mindari Senior College.
There you go.
Just like me.
Yep.
And I've done well, haven't I?
Well, mate, you got Mick getting shouted out by Coldplay, Uncle Leon, 100 million.
On the Gear Podcast.
Oh, Gear Podcast, Hey, it's all working out. Hey, supporting Yngwie Malmsteen, that's one thing. Yngwie Malmsteen does not give a fuck about Mick's book. I'll guarantee that.
No. There's a lot of things I feel like he would not give a fuck about anything that's not Yngwie Malmsteen. So who knows? Maybe we'll get him on the Gear Podcast. Imagine that.
Yep. Wait, Yngwie or Mick?
Just be like... we'll throw that one out to the audience and they can let us know what they would prefer. Until next week, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Gear Podcast. We'll see you then.
Peace.